Providence, make some noise. I don't know if y'all saw, but 23andMe is going bankrupt, and I imagine Providence has some stake in what happens with all that data, because it was y'all that were looking it up and like, no, I just wonder, you know what I mean? Like sometimes, I don't know, there's just some days where I feel like a little Scandinavian, and no, it's just fun to find out. It's like, just how German am I? And you get those percentage breakdowns and stuff. It's like, all right, do you? I don't know. I wonder. I truly wonder. I knew they had some black people in the commercials, but I do wonder how many of us it was. Because every time I saw an ad for like a 23andMe, I was like, I have a general idea. Nah, I don't need to be sad today. I would rather not. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Then send me a back. Send me a PDF that says, slavery. They got you. Nah, I was good. And one of the reasons that was good is that early on, like I'm finally vindicated where I can say this and not seem crazy, because even at best, if my thing is like wrong, it still wasn't the best business plan, so they're going to, so I don't look as, because my friends looked at me like I was out of my mind. I had so many friends, all white. I had so many friends doing 23andMe, and I was like, don't do it! And because I was a truther. I was like, look at what the company is doing, and look at what they're researching. Yeah, I mean, there are so many of these like heritage companies that are also putting money into pharmaceutical industry, and it's just to figure out how much of something people get when they're a certain lineage, invest in those drugs, expecting that thing to finally pop up one day. And people were like, that's so paranoid. And I was like, yeah. Paranoid is... Paranoid is like why I won't do the thing. Like, okay, how do I put this? Paranoid to me is if you're right and you're paranoid, you're like spot on. If you're paranoid and you happen to be wrong, you do start to be crazy. Like that is what a crazy person, like that's, now I'm crazy. If I was wrong and they were just a blossoming company and they were only helping the world, I'd be that one dude on the corner, don't take it. I mean, that would be me. But look, all I'm saying is I told so many people, I was like, hey, you don't need to know. You made it through. Because then I had some friends where I was like, you don't even need to know because I can tell you. How about that? I'll do you that favor. You don't need 23andMe, I'll do it for you. I have a friend who, okay, these two friends, they're the sweetest, but they make marriage such a curiosity to me, because I don't get, okay, she had kind of given him this ultimatum, right? Like really, go ahead and like, we're either doing it or we're not, you're either in this or you're out, right? And so then he went ahead and proposed, and they got married. They're still married. And I don't know, like as a bystander, his friend, closer to him than her, I don't know why she would do that to herself, right? Because I went out to dinner with them one time, third wheeling it. It's okay because they're married. It's not awkward. I'm just chilling with my buddies, right? My buddy and his wife, who I'm now friends with as well. And the server comes over and we're ordering. And then the server asked if there were any food allergies. I said no. And he turns to her and goes, "Do I?" "Do I have any food allergies?" And she answered. She was like, "Yeah, shellfish." He was about to order the lobster bucket. And I was like, how is it worth keeping him alive like this? You literally forced an ultimatum to make it your job to keep him alive. Your prerogative, do what you want, but wow. You ever been driving and then you see like an animal on the side of the road and you're like, oh, we have to do something, someone might hit that animal, and so then you stop the car and you catch it and you put it in the back seat and you take it to like a local shelter or something, and they're like, hey, so sorry, we're really overrun. So then you take it home and it sort of becomes your dog over time, and you love it and you take care of it and you keep it alive. And that is exactly what she did with my friend. With my friend, she saw this dude who, if left to his own devices, would eat all the shellfish, not fully hitch himself, fully just get a puffed out head. And she was like, no, I need to not only stop that from happening, I need to make him my entire responsibility. And so when she was like, yeah, shellfish, and he was like, oh, right. I was sitting there like flabbergasted, right? And then we were eating, and as we're eating, she lightly starts choking, right? Like starts choking on her meal, and she's like doing the coughs and trying to get some water. Like just you can hear her trying to force it out, and we both recognize that she's choking, and we both we don't fully stand up because we're in a booth, but we start to like push up a little bit, like as if we're gonna have to get up, and I'm about to come around, and then he's like, spit it out. Sir, what do you think her plan is? Do you think she's like contemplating spitting out, but oh, it's just so good? I bring up this entire thing because he did a 23andMe. And I was like, bro, I can tell you right now, all right? You're half jackass. You're a quarter dumbass. And you're another quarter ass. He has a very big butt. He is thick. No, it's insane. Because then 23andMe not only was getting everyone's like data that had their DNA, also home addresses, also payment methods. So there's so many different things that are bad about a breach to 23andMe versus like a breach of Target or a breach of some other company that has a whole lot of credit card transactions, right? There's like actual things about you as a person in there. And I know as Americans, we don't care about our data. We don't. Our data, man, look, we gotta start respecting ourselves. For real, we are out here loose with our data, all right? You know what I mean? I'm not trying to shame, myself included. We are slutty with our data. Letting anybody get it. Anybody can get it. Anybody that feels like typing can get some of it. Not careful anything. We could have VPNs. We could have so much stuff. No. let's be a little loose. There was already a data breach of 23andMe, and that freaked investors out. It freaked people out. It's like, what do people want with like my DNA results, you know? And then that stuff was apparently sold on the dark web in bits. And it's like, that's terrifying, because I don't know what the dark web is. Everybody keep talking about the dark web, but whenever I go to Safari, it's just regular web. Everybody talking about the dark web. I don't know. I'm not even saying I want on. I just don't know how to get on, which scares me because I feel like I might accidentally get on one day. Do you know what I'm talking about? You know how you could go somewhere? Like, to me, the dark web feels a lot like gang territory. When I was growing up, if you go on a long enough walk, you end up somewhere you're not supposed to be. But you're like, these the same feet that take me home took me here, so I wasn't trying to do anything, but that doesn't matter. Once you're in the territory, it's like, why are you wearing that color? So then imagine, I'm just on the regular internet. I go to Safari, Firefox, any of it, and I type in the website. I get it one letter wrong. All of a sudden my screen black and the letters green. I'm sitting here trying to get out the matrix as fast as I can. And police quick with it now. They kick open the door like, why you on the dark web? It's like, no, it was my thumb. I didn't want this at all. So yeah, apparently a bunch of our data, a bunch of our DNA results are already on the dark web, which is insane. And then you have 23andMe, to their credit. This is why business is scary in the US, right? We get mad at companies for creating a product. And they used to create a product. Our parents and our grandparents know about this. They used to create a product and they put together the pieces. They had the best pieces to make the best product. And so if it ever broke down and you understood how the product was made, you could buy one of those pieces and fix that product, right? It's why our grandparents had TVs from the 60s. Because you could just go in there, you could open it up and be like, okay. And now purposefully, whether it's for IP, there are places that will sue you. There are certain phone companies that will straight up sue you if you fix people's phones for a business. Then some of those same companies will make it so everything is one use. So if it breaks, you have to buy another one, because that's how they keep the revenue coming in, right? They don't want you to be self-sufficient and actually know how to fix this thing, because then you might do it. They'd make less money. Right? So they make a worse and worse product and they charge more and more for it. And if everybody does it, it becomes the new norm. And so now you don't expect anything to last for 4 or 5 years. And that used to be short term. You used to get things that last you for 10 years. My boy's granddaddy had a laptop. It might be the first laptop. It's honestly so old we can't even tell what the brand icon is, because that wiped away a long time ago. This computer looks like it was made in the movie Dune, like it's futuristic and old at the same time. And you turn it on and the on button is hard. It's extra hard. You gotta press it with some girth. You gotta really lean on that on button if you want to turn it on. If you just press it, the computer's like, you don't want it bad enough. You gotta put your thumb almost in that button, and then you hear not even a click, you hear every key is clickety clacking and hard as hell. And then when you turn it on, it does cough. Turn it on, it makes all those fake internet sounds. You can hear the fan inside of it fighting for its life. The fan inside, it's because now all the blades of the fans and everything have an almost silent motion to them. Sometimes you can hear you can just hear them if they're really working overtime. I had this Lenovo laptop in college. It was one of the last laptops where it looked like, if you look closely enough, you could see at least one of the fan blades moving, right? The fan in this laptop, first of all, I think it's missing a tooth. Cause it's trying, it's coughing and it's trying, and you can hear it. His computer moans. I forgot to mention that. And then, if you want to turn on Wi-Fi, there's nothing clickable. You want Wi-Fi? You got to hit that switch. You got to slide a switch at the front of the computer. And then you get a little stick with the little edges on the side. Beep, 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 you know. This laptop got everything but an antenna. And his granddad knew computers, or at least he knew computers well enough back when computers first came out, like first computer, just little 0, little 1. He had it on lock. And so he fixed his laptop over and over and over again for years, to the point where even now it'll turn on. You gotta press extra hard, you really gotta lean your body over it, but it'll turn on. And that day is gone. We're not in that anymore. We're in the world of tech companies putting out their products and soldering it to make sure that if you open it, you destroy it, right? And 23andMe, to their credit, they came up with a good product. They came up with a very good product. The problem was you only needed it once. And so that was pretty much their undoing. Some people are going to say it was marketing. Some people are going to say it was general business plan. No, the thing that 23andMe did that was wrong in today's America was making a good product. People only needed it once and then they could forget about it. And they tried the subscription thing. They tried it. And people, even my white friends were like, no, I got it. I mean, you said 45% Scandinavian. I'm going to take your word for it. I don't need to keep spitting in cups and sending them to you. That was the other thing I didn't trust. You know what I mean? Like, you just spit in a cup and mail it. Nah. Admittedly, that was a black thing for me. I was like, I'm not just gonna put my DNA out there for someone to have in case. Imagine now your mailman a murderer. He see that 23andMe package, he's like, this'll do nicely. Now the mailman kills somebody on his normal schedule. He open up your 23andMe and then dump out your little sample. See, they did it, right? And you can tell they did because they kissed him on the forehead right after. No. And so they made a very good product. Well, some would say an incredible product. There's connection. There's connection in knowing where you come from, especially if you're deeply in search for it. Finding those answers can be really special. Not special enough for me to spit in the cup and then mail it, because it's like, nah, you're not gonna get me, right? But one day, in some way, maybe, it'd be beautiful to figure out exactly where you come from, trace your entire lineage and everything like that. But a good portion of our life is genetics, but another portion is of where you come from are the people around you. The people that raise you are where you come from. Your environment is where you come from. Your culture, your community are where you come from. You know, if you have a good handle on those things, you know yourself. All the rest of the stuff is just gravy, you know? Because they tried to do these like home diagnostics, and that was a very bad idea. They were incredibly inaccurate, so people were either thinking they were in the clear or worrying for no reason, because you would do the 23andMe, and if you did the like pro premium package with the home diagnostic stuff, they'd send your sample back. They give you a PDF being like, yeah, you got diabetes. And then you would be like, are you sure? And they would say, no, I truly have no idea. That's the other reason I didn't do it. Not only am I like, no, I'm not gonna get my DNA out. What if you're a murderer? I also don't want to worry for no reason. Now, imagine somebody sending you something in the mail that's like, it's bad. It's bad, it's very bad. I'm not sure. Don't take my word for it, but it is pretty bad. I already have people in my life to do that. Truly, I already have people in my life giving me horrific medical advice. Just some of the worst stuff you've ever heard in your entire life. I have a friend who doesn't eat vegetables. Doesn't eat vegetables because he doesn't want to eat anything too phallic. I was like, well, explain your logic to me. And he was like, no, just dog, like, why, you want me to eat a cucumber? Try to bite a cucumber right now. It's all in your face, all hard and stuff. Not me. Not me. A carrot? No. I was like, you could chop it up. That's what they do. Do you think in a salad that they just lay the whole thing down? What are you talking about? Chop it up and eat your vegetable. He's like, no. You want me to hold? First of all, you want me to hold it and chop? You want me to hold? You want me to? No. That might give me nightmares, dog. I'm like, all right, yeah, be deficient in everything then. Just walk around needing a nap twice a day. That's on you. Horrific medical advice. The type of medical advice that makes you go, oh, okay. I didn't think there'd be anything worse than WebMD, but I found you. So they were doing these home diagnostic tests and everything, and they were sending people stuff back being like, yeah, you got a bunch of like heart stuff in your family. And then they would act accordingly. They'd go to their doctor, they'd run a bunch of tests. And if they were lucky, that was like incorrect, you know? Or sometimes they would miss whole things, you know? They'd be like, nah, you good. You good. In fact, your blood pressure low. You might want to get something salty right now. Nah, hit that pork chop right quick. You have the pork chop, all of a sudden you dizzy. Why is my whole left side hurt? And so now that they're going bankrupt, there are people that are looking to buy it, and some of those people are like potentially insurers, which is terrifying. Is everything that I told people not to do when they were on the up and up. I'm like, hey, so now an insurance company is gonna buy your DNA and then not let you do any claims, because they're like, no, we know you sick, dog. We saw the 23andMe. You know, because if you do a 23andMe of a corporation, they are 100% devil. Also somehow 100% efficient. No, it sucks. I look at where I come from, and like I said, it's from the people who raised me, people who put me together, or what I'm made up of. Like, there are people in my life that I was very fortunate to meet young, who were much older, so they had a lot of wisdom to pass down. I remember there was this woman who would she'd just drop gems on me every now and again, out of nowhere, right? One time she said to me, she was like, you know, be very careful when you're picking a partner. Be very careful who you have a child with, because you're not making a baby, you're making a soul. And that's forever. She also once told me, don't ever trust somebody named after fruit. And I was like, what? And she was like, seriously, if somebody comes in your life named Clementine, she a hoe, all right? Don't trust any Clementines, okay? out of nowhere one time, she told me. We were just sitting, and she was saying this about people, but she was like, when you finally see yourself the way that the people that love you see you, what a wonderful world that'll be. That's all the world's missing. It's people that see themselves the way that the people that love them see them. Truly, like, there's, in everything that people do and everything we search for, we try to find it in all these other places, but there's a level of acceptance that other people have for us, and sometimes we reject it or we think we don't deserve it. But if we could see ourselves, you wish it. You wish it on people when they're battling addiction and depression. You wish, it's like, oh, I just want you to see yourself the way I see you. If you saw yourself the way that I see you, you wouldn't feel this way about yourself. You know? She also once told me never get in an argument with a woman and then eat the pie she makes after that argument. That's a pie full of glass. One time she told me, I don't even know where it came from, but she said that sometimes when people are searching for love, that all they really need is to find someone who reminds them of their best day. Find someone who feels like their best day. You're gonna argue, you're gonna not be able to stay each other sometimes, but you can find somebody that feels like your best day. You won't always be happy, but you'll be like really in love. She was like, you find someone who feels like the best day that you've ever had. Because the best days only come once in a while. Every day can't be the best day, by definition. But if you find somebody that feels like your best day, you found a truly good life. She also told me that one time she got in an argument with her ex-husband, and she decided to let it go in that moment, you know, and bake him a pie. And she was like, wasn't my best day. I understand why people would want to do 23andMe, and I understand, at least on the surface, why they went bankrupt. They made the mistake of making a really good product and giving it to everybody, and everybody only needed it once, and that is tough. That's tough to watch people use their thing, watch that valuation go up. At one point, it was worth $6 billion. Billion. $6 billion. That's crazy. And then, you know, they started dropping off left and right. You know, people were like, oh, I'm not going to renew their subscription, or I sent it to my friend, but they don't want to take it. And the other reason people didn't want to take it was the other thing they did that was really good, but was their undoing, was they were helping to catch a lot of murderers. There were a lot of murderers who didn't even do 23andMe. They were like, I don't care how Scandinavian I am. And they're like, well, your cousin does. Hands behind your back. And you over here. That's tough. That's tough. You know what I mean? Because look, listen. I'm not rooting for criminals, okay? But how would you feel if you did all that planning? Do you know what I mean? You do all that planning, you rob a bank, you make it out scot-free. They're gonna make a movie about this one day and not know how to end it. You made it off scot-free, didn't kill anybody, very low charges if they catch you, just brandishing a weapon. Get on the ground, you know, took all the money and stuff like that. Haven't even spent it yet. And then one day, it's very quiet. It's so quiet that you're like, damn, it's quiet in here. And maybe you live in an apartment building. You're like, usually I hear somebody arguing with their spouse, hear some kids maybe. I mean, you know, hear some loud music, some teenagers around here. And you don't hear anything. And then out of nowhere, they bust open your door. They've cleared out all the neighbors, like, get on the ground! And you're like, what? How? How is this possible? You don't even have the money on. You planned it so well, the money's buried in another state. How? Oh, well, when you were robbing the bank, you cut your finger and it bled a little. And a brother you don't know you have spit in a cup in Providence, Rhode Island. And honestly, we wouldn't have found you if it wasn't for that. Like, we were like, all the markers aren't matching and we can't seem to connect the dots. And then your cousin spit in that cup. Turns out, you're pretty Scandinavian. You are very Scandinavian. Picking you up off the floor. Oh, thanks. Had no idea. Carting you off. Who knows? Maybe 23andMe's data, your data, will end up in good hands. Yeah, if you feel that way, you should delete it off the website right now. We are so loose with our data.
Okay, are you guys ready for your headliner for the night? You know him and love him from The Daily Show, so put your hands together for Josh Johnson!
I've been trying to listen to more music because I think that obviously it's important to read, it's important to talk to people. But I think music has a special place where you can learn something. Sometimes there's something that you can get from music that you just cannot get anywhere else. It doesn't hit the same through spoken word, it doesn't hit the same way through prose, through reading it, because I think whether it's melody or it's rhythm, there's something that you open yourself up to when there's music that you wouldn't if there wasn't. Like, it's a hard thing to explain sometimes, but there are little things that are written that stick with me. But then sometimes there's things that are just sung. And maybe it's just because of the way it's sung or something. I like that lyric. Let me think about that more. And then you chew on an idea, right? Music is incredibly powerful. Like, I think about back in Louisiana, I know somebody who, she divorced her husband with a singing telegram. Now, you can already imagine how different it hits to maybe be at a dinner and demand a divorce. I'm sick of this. I'm tired of you. I'm always putting up with the same stuff. I want a divorce. You know what I mean? Your server is like, so, no dessert. Or even if you just write someone a letter, they're sitting at home reading this letter in this unsealed envelope. They're just sitting there reading it like, What? But to have a singing telegram show up, knock on your door, be hitting the music, you know, little stereo, standing there. Beat starts, they're just, I am your singing telegram. And then they give you the worst news of your life. Dancing to it too. She doesn't want to see you anymore. You become a bore. She wants a divorce. And putting his hand out for a tip. You know, music hits different. I think sometimes one of the most beautiful ways to remember somebody that you lost is through music. You know, sometimes, you know, you'll tell a story or something, and if the story doesn't hold a significance for a person, it just doesn't, they don't capture the thing that you captured when you talked to them or when the story happened. Maybe you had to be there, maybe you had to know the person, but when somebody leaves a song behind, that's like timeless in a way. We lost a very important person. Legendary person. We lost Quincy Jones, right? And if you don't know who Quincy Jones is, just educate yourself. I mean, Quincy Jones, not just a legend, an icon of culture, of music, but something deeper, like understood. Quincy understood people, understood music, understood storytelling, right? Quincy was one of the master collaborators. There were people that you love and you love their work and you don't know Quincy's in it. You know? Like that, it's that way with Michael Jackson. Quincy and Michael Jackson had major hits. Michael Jackson owed some of his biggest hits to his collaborations with Quincy Jones because Quincy could help pull out the best parts of the person that he was collaborating with. And there's even stories. There's legendary stories that Quincy Jones has told. More stories than I could ever even attempt to describe. Like, crazy stuff. This man lived one of the most remarkable lives in American history. And there's stories that are so insane that Quincy's like not even in the story, but he's in the story. Like he's not even a part of the story, but the story came together because of Quincy. As an example, I heard this story. It's a little bit less than a rumor, but a part of me wants it to be true because it's fantastic. Quincy had daughters. Quincy's daughters were, one of them was Khadijah, and at one point Khadijah apparently was dating Tupac, right? And this still blows my mind. So Tupac, through potential collaborations that they were supposed to do, knows Michael Jackson, right? Michael Jackson obviously knows Quincy Jones from the hits that they made together and everything. But there's this one time where when Tupac was leaving somewhere with Khadijah, like I don't know if it was like a dance club or something like that, but they were having an argument. And you know one of those arguments that you see where you're like, I don't know, is this bad? This is like, you know, like as a couple when you see them, and maybe it was that whisper fight, and you know that thing that couples do, it's like, I'm just That's a big one at restaurants, you know. Oh yeah, you ever date somebody that could curse you out with those whispers? They hitting all the F's. Nobody hears, but and you know, if you passing by, I don't know, is this a bad fight? Who knows? Or maybe they were having a screaming match. It doesn't seem like it because it seemed like kind of one side. Like Tupac was very annoyed with Khadijah trying to get her to come along and everything. And we've all been in a situation, if you've just been out, where you've seen a couple argue and you're like, is this bad? Do you know what I mean? Like you've been in a Walmart parking lot where you were like, is this just how they talk to each other? Or like, should I step in or something? Because this is uncomfortable, you know? And I'm not picking on Walmart. I've been to a Golden Corral and just waiting to be seated, and you're like, all right, they about to eat together? That doesn't seem like a happy occasion. And so, you know, Tupac was saying something tantamount to like, come on, girl, hurry up, come on, right? But they're leaving as Michael Jackson is coming in, and Michael Jackson sees this. And so he approaches Tupac because of the closeness that he has with Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones' daughters are like Tupac's nieces to a certain degree. It's like that with any close friendship, you know? This is your uncle. Well, we're not related, but that's your uncle, right? And he says, hey, is everything okay? I don't like how you're talking to her. You need to chill out. You need to calm down, right? And then Tupac apparently says to Mike, hey, back up, all right? This is none of your business. Be about your way, all right? And then Michael is like, no, you don't understand. This is pretty much my niece. You're not going to talk to her any type of way, especially in public. You need to calm down, right? And then tells him again, you need to back up. You need to back off, right? And then according to the story, Michael Jackson beat Tupac's ass. I know how it sounds. But this is my thing. When I look at Tupac, I look at Michael Jackson, I can't help but wonder if the two of them, in a way, are like the inverse of each other. You know? Because we've seen from footage of this person that Tupac is, right? This incredibly adept poet, this person who pulls the tenderness out of horrific things and expresses that tenderness back through music or just through written word. That type of poet, that person is in some ways a sensitive person, like a sensitive soul. Maybe not soft, maybe not, you know, but there's someone who clearly has a sensitive side that they can access. And I think that a lot of like thug life, a lot of the street stuff, some of that is to sell records. Some of that he was really living. But you can't help but wonder how much of this persona is a persona to sell, to market, and how much of this is actually him. Because what if, when no one's around, behind closed doors, when you're just chilling, this guy is a sweetheart, sensitive person. You know, it's what's been said about him through people who knew him. And you look at Michael Jackson. We know Michael Jackson was abused horribly. Joe Jackson beat those kids. And you go through your life like that with abuse, it can harden a person. And maybe behind closed doors, when no one was around, maybe Mike was like a little bit more hardened than we'd like to believe. You know? So imagine that. You're fighting Michael Jackson. It's gotta be upsetting. I can't imagine trying to fight Michael Jackson, the king of pop. I can't imagine him fighting without doing moves for no reason. Imagine trying to fight Michael Jackson and he punch you, but he moving his leg. The leg not involved in the punch. You have the king of pop, right? And you have Tupac. Tupac is on the Everest of hip hop, right? Tupac, for better or for worse, created an entire lane of hip hop that people went down and either created some of the best artistry that I think personally has been known to man musically, and then some people who leaned into the street side a little too much and it just became something destructive. But Tupac is up there. And Tupac is who you would imagine would be beating on anybody, right? I'm not saying Tupac couldn't fight. All I will say is that the one fight that I saw Tupac in is the one that we can all see him in. It's the night that he was fighting with those dudes in Vegas. You know? A bunch of guys on his side, guys on the other side, everybody can be. I'm not saying Tupac couldn't fight. I'm saying the way that I saw him fighting in that video looked like the way all of us might try to double dutch. Do you know what I mean? Because there was a big cartoonish scuffle, just feet in the air, fists out of the, you know what I mean? Just like, you know, like with those Looney Tunes smoke clouds of fights and everything, and Tupac was outside of it, and you could tell he was trying to find his place. He was like, And now, you're fighting Michael Jackson. Someone so horrifically coordinated. He hitting you and then pop it and lock it. Doing all these extra moves and stuff. Michael Jackson probably the only person in human history that could be beating somebody's ass and sound like he getting beat at the same time. Just, he punching you, kicking you, and then he the one be like, ow! I'd be mad as hell. You trying to fight Michael Jackson. You trying to swing on him and everything. And every time you think you really got a good one, you planned it out, you know, the fist is gonna go in his face and I'm swinging with all your might. And then he just doing these dumbass leans. It's gotta be terrifying. Trying to fight Michael Jackson, he got enough cardio to dance for 3 concerts. You know, and he thin too, so he hard to hit, he moving off. You swinging at him, he's saying stuff to you, words that don't make any sense. Tamagotchi. What am I supposed to do? Whispering to you. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, especially if you have a fondness for a person, there's at least rumor that there are these tracks that got scrapped between Michael Jackson and Tupac. They were supposed to be on some songs together, right? So it's not as if they didn't know each other. And now imagine, you know this person. And you don't want to hurt them. They were talking disrespectfully to someone else that you love. And maybe they pushed you first. And now you're fighting. And then, you know, you hit them. And you hit them hard. You hit them real good. Now Tupac bent over and everything. Michael Jackson, I don't even want to say it, but he's like, are you okay? You know, the way I imagine it, Tupac gathered himself and was like, no, I'm not done. I can't go out like this. And he was written back in, you know, swinging at him and everything. And then Michael Jackson went to kicking. And that, even when Michael Jackson was dancing, he wouldn't kick normal. He was never just like doing a kick. It was always like his leg was gonna come off. The whole kick. And now you stand there, you've been kicked 17 times, you still standing up, got all these footprints on you like you got run over at a marathon or something. Your friends roll up to you and now you gotta be like, It was 6 of them. They came out of nowhere. They all had the same shoe on. Oh. This is brutal. You know what I mean? Imagine you fighting somebody you respect, too. You gotta fight one of your heroes. It's unnerving. Beating you up. Fixing his hat for no reason. Because hearing about this fight, hearing about this rumor, reminded me of a different rumor that I heard about Michael Jackson. Something that, I don't know. I mean, it's you can take it or leave it. I don't know. It's something that I believed for a little while because of who was saying it. But basically, Michael Jackson had such a passion for the specific art that he was doing. Not just the music, not just the spectacle, but just the whole thing. So much so that he would let it spill off stage. And all of it became a persona. All of it became a presentation, performance, almost all the time. And one of the ways that it presented itself was not just in how he dressed and how he looked and stuff, but also how he spoke. Because there's an idea that if you can be meek enough, if you could be gentle enough, if you could be soft-spoken enough, that people's perceptions of you will almost pass past you and just see the music. if you're not this big, larger-than-life character, if you're not getting in trouble all the time, maybe if people can just see me as this, like, the same kid that they fell in love with, now just making bigger and better things, maybe they'll love the bigger and better things I have to make, right? And so there's a rumor from a few different people who knew Mike well, who would chill with him, sometimes just out by themselves, when there was no risk of being seen by the public. And they said that that voice, the voice that we know as Michael Jackson, the voice that's been, imitated over decades, was not his voice. That's what they said, that if you were hanging out with Michael Jackson, you just chilling with him at his time, he actually had a way more like level register than that, which is something that shocked me, because I was like, wow, imagine putting that much into a performance, that it's like off stage and it's everywhere, and it's everyone that you meet, you're shaking hands with people, you're meeting people, and that's still not quite you. You're still putting it on a little bit, right? But now imagine you're fighting Michael Jackson. And not only is he beating your ass, but every once in a while he's like, come here, bitch. Like, that's gotta be maybe the most shocking part. I don't know what I would do. You're fighting Michael Jackson, and he's making 3 different noises at the same time. He got a low one, he got a high one. He's saying weird stuff. Not only do you have to fight Michael Jackson, you gotta fight a possessed version of Michael Jackson, I'm assuming, because you've never heard him talk like this. No. That's one of the funniest images I have in my head, is Michael Jackson punching you in your forehead and they're being like, what's up, nigga? Like, that's... No, what's really hood, dog? What's really... Imagine, and you're Tupac, you're getting beat, presumably in front of some people, by Michael Jackson. At a certain point, you gotta be like, guys, somebody must have a gun. Shoot this man. Even if you try to shoot him, Michael Jackson probably like catching the bullets. Well, maybe he knocks you down. You laying on the ground. You ever seen somebody get beat? I know I'm digressing to digress, but like this, you ever see somebody get beat up real bad and all of a sudden it's almost like they have a cold or something because they start coughing? It's like they get punched a couple times, they're like, and then Michael Jackson rolls you over with his foot, walks around you all disrespectful, just fixing his belt and stuff. He's standing over you. You don't know what's about to happen next. You don't know if he's gonna curb dance you or... You're waiting for him. Is Michael Jackson gonna kill me? And then he's looking down at you. Maybe you even try to get up one more time. Maybe you got a little fight left. I can't go out like this. I have Thug Life tattooed on me. Give it all you got. You swinging at Michael Jackson. You kicking at him and stuff. And you got to worry about extra. You got to worry about like extra things with Mike. You got to worry about his kicks, his punches. You also got to worry about his pelvis. He also moving that all weird and stuff. Imagine somebody punching at you and then just. I don't know what to do with that. It's very upsetting. Michael Jackson punches you down to the ground again. You hit the ground. You're like, this is it. He's going to kill me. And he's standing over you, towering over you. And when you're waiting for him to hit you with that death blow, he just goes.
I don't know. It probably didn't happen, but it's fun to dream.
You have seen him everywhere, but tonight you are seeing him live. Please put your hands together for Josh Johnson.
Sometimes I find myself falling down whole rabbit holes online of things, stories and stuff. And there's a case, there's a trial. It just ended. And I think it may qualify for trial of the century. I know that's premature to say, but I don't know. I think it's pretty incredible. The trial of Young Thug just ended. Now, if you don't know who Young Thug is, he's a rapper. It's not a dog whistle this time, all right? Young Thug is a rapper that was on trial in Fulton County in Georgia, right? Basically, the state's case, what they were alleging was that he took all of the money that he made from music and he funneled it through and to a gang called YSL, a gang that he was supposedly the leader of, right? And that's the state's case. And the judge in the case looked exhausted. I've never seen a judge act like this before. Every time the court camera cut to her, her head was in her hands. And I'm not gonna act like I know the law, okay? My understanding of the law sort of begins and ends with Law and Order SVU, all right? So I know you can sustain, and you can object. I've never heard a judge be like, you can't do that. She said it a lot. And now the prosecution in the case, the prosecutor had given out a lot of plea deals. Ton of plea deals. More plea deals than I thought you could give out. I didn't have a number in my head, but this felt like an egregious amount of plea deals. It just felt like she was going to the hood like, you get a plea deal, you get a plea deal, you get a plea deal, you get a plea. She was basically giving a plea deal to everybody in Georgia but Young Thug, right? And she was giving these plea deals in return for their cooperation, their testimony that she would use to piece by piece paint the bigger picture that the state was alleging that Young Thug's the leader of YSL. Everything they do is by his direction. All his money goes through and to them, right? And the only problem is the prosecutor in this case gave plea deals to some of the least helpful people in human history, all right? I've never seen people less helpful than this. It was astoundingly unhelpful. I was helping my friend move one time. And he and I had to move a pool table, just us, downstairs. And our third friend was there at the bottom of the stairs just watching. And even he was more helpful than anyone that the prosecutor gave a plea deal to in this case. At least he could be like, watch your step, something. I'm gonna tell you about some of the testimony. I'm gonna need you to be patient with me because a lot of the dudes testified in this trial are going by their rapper name and they haven't made it yet. So I don't know why it's spelled like that. I don't know how to pronounce it. Just, I'm gonna say he for short, all right? There's one dude that was on the stand, right? And prosecutor asked him a very specific question, very specific reason. She goes, did Young Thug have an issue with Rich Homie Quan bringing his friend to the party, right? Now, Rich Homie Quan is also a rapper who has sadly passed away. But his friend, to the best of my knowledge, allegedly, is a gang member, right? This whole question is to paint Young Thug as a leader of a gang. That's why he would have a problem with a different gang member coming to his party, right? So the prosecutor asked, did Young Thug have an issue with Rich Homie Quan bringing his friend to the party? And then this guy on the stand goes, Thug, did you have an issue with Rich Homie Quan? Never in the history of court have I seen someone ask a question by the prosecution and then go, I'll just go to the source. And so then the prosecutor goes, no, I'm asking you. Did Young Thug have an issue with Rich Homie Quan bringing his friend to the party, all right? And then this guy goes, I'm not Young Thug, so I don't know. Moments later, prosecutors are asking question after question after question, all alleging the same thing, all to the same end, right? And this dude, he's not being combative. He's not even being rude. He's just not being helpful. And so then the prosecutor pulls up, I don't know if she pulled up it exactly, but basically references his plea deal where she goes, I have right here you answering questions definitively that I'm asking you right now. And then this guy, on the stand, goes, y'all wrote that, I just signed it. Never in the history of court, at least that I know of, and it's like, you know, the internet especially was of two minds, because it was like people could not decide if these were like some of the dumbest people who had ever lived or legal masterminds. Because basically what this dude is saying in open court, right, is, look, you were about to give me how many years. I didn't want to do how many years, and you told me if I signed the paper, I wouldn't do how many years, right? So I signed the paper, but I'm not about to perjure myself. Oh. This dude was supposed to be on the stand for 3 hours. 3 days later. The prosecution is asking question after question after question, all to the same end, right? And, you know, references again. Look, I understand that we typed it up, but what is in this is based off of what you said to the police. This is based off of testimony you gave during interrogation. And he was like, yeah, but if you gave it to me to type up, it would say something different than what you have right there, right now. Even the prosecutor was like, oh. Question after question after question after question. And finally, this dude, he doesn't snap exactly. He doesn't lose it, right? I think he just gets exhausted. And finally he says, look, I'll tell you what I told the police. I'll say anything. Like, this is a witness for the prosecution. It's absolutely insane. The whole case is insane because you even look at the fact that the case had 3 different judges. Yeah, got passed off like a bad baton. First judge. First judge was Judge, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Glanville. Glanville, yeah. And this judge, he does seem to suck. Like, he does. But he also had to put up with some stuff, too, because there were jurors that were fully out of pocket during this case. Just a couple of examples. There was one juror that got picked. It already took nearly a year, by the way, to pick a jury, which is insane. And then after they picked the jury, there's one juror that during the trial has started, and I think they just went to the Dominican Republic. Deputies got sent to their house, were knocking on the door, everything, and then they got back, and they had to appear in court, and the judge was like, you have to be here to be on the jury. And they were like, every day? That sounds wildly inconvenient. Then the judge was ready to, hold this jury in contempt and was basically giving them an out because this judge in particular loved contempt. He had a lot of contempt. The entire trial full of contempt. And gave the juror a way out. He was like, look, I could send you to jail, I could fine you, but what I'm gonna have you do instead is write me a 30-page paper on the importance of being a juror. This dude sentenced her to APA style. He sentenced her to citing sources. You couldn't see his face in the moment, but even Thug was like, damn. That's cruel and unusual. I've never heard of that before. There was another juror that admittedly, I don't even know what happened with this person, but I know that they got in trouble for for live streaming the case. Which is extra crazy because it was being live streamed. Like, if you had been watching at home, you would just see them sit with the jury like... You risk jail time for an extra angle. We are... Judge Glanville, oof. There was a lot of plea deals being given out the entire case, like I said before. And some of the things that were happening was, this is me guessing, but there were people that were not being super forthcoming, that they probably didn't necessarily have to be, but they were in some sort of trouble. And so the plea deal was just given just as an extra, it's okay, you can talk, we just need to get this guy, right? And even with that, there were still people that didn't quite want to testify. And then there were people that were being so difficult, state's witnesses who were being so difficult that the state just could not get anywhere, And there was one person, star witness. Basically, the prosecution needed a through line. They needed something that would connect everything. And so they laid a lot of it on one person in particular. Okay? And they needed his testimony so bad that they pretty much gave him immunity on the stand. I didn't even know you could do that. It sounds made up. It sounds fake. I feel like he thought it was fake too, because he was like, immunity on, so if I say something on the stand, answering one of your questions, and it implicates Thug, but it also implicates me, I'm okay? Yeah, you're okay, you have immunity. Immunity on the stand, you're gonna be good. You sure? Yeah, you're gonna be good. Okay, I'm not even joking. He goes, okay. Okay, but what if it's federal? And I love that. I love a good haggle. I love like, okay, I hear immunity, but can I get a federal? Can I get some federal? Federal, please. Can I get a little federal? Oh, it's beautiful. This dude gets all the stab, and you can tell he doesn't trust it. You can tell he's like, nah, they're up to something. Doesn't want to answer any questions, but we told you have immunity. All right. Basically compelling this man to testify, dangling immunity in his face. Sits on the stand. First question from a prosecutor. How old are you? And he goes, grown. And the prosecutor's like, what do you mean by grown? It's like, I'm an adult. Prosecutor is like, okay, seeing as you're an adult, how many years is that? And then he goes, looks over at the judge. I plead the fifth. Truly incredible work. Truly phenomenal, They would be asking him lots of questions, question after question. And it was getting frustrating for the prosecution. It was getting frustrating for the judge because, look, maybe I'm doing my best to be as fair as possible, but when you watch a case like this, it does just seem like if you're a defendant, you're up against two parties. You're up against the prosecution and you're up against the judge, because everything in this case kept giving the prosecution chances, even when they would mess up. Because once again, they're not being given a lot with testimony, but there are things that they have in hard evidence. They're just not bringing them all together to make it cohesive, right? And then this star witness's testimony is not helping. So then, can't stress this enough, you cannot do this. Judge Glanville supposedly has a secret meeting with the witness and the prosecution, but not Young Thug's lawyers, right? It's something in Latin that I don't know how to pronounce, but you're not supposed to do it. And basically, in this meeting, this witness is then threatened with the dangled immunity and everything. Oh, we'll charge you for this. We'll hold you in contempt for 2 years. We'll put you in jail. All this stuff, unless you start testifying, unless you start answering questions to the best of your ability. I don't want to hear any more of this pleading of the fifth, all that stuff, right? And so then they go back to court, and he's answering questions so well that the defense gets suspicious. Defense is like, what happened between now and lunch? All of a sudden, he remembers everything. He remembered what color everybody was wearing. And then it comes to the defense lawyer's attention that there was this secret meeting. And so he addresses it in court, in front of the judge, to the judge. He goes, Your Honor, I've heard some distressing news that there was a secret meeting with you, the prosecution, and the witness. My client and I were not privy to. I don't know what was discussed. You know, this person's acting different now. Like, what is this? And the judge, instead of denying it, instead of being like, that's a horrible accusation, that's not true at all, the judge goes, who told you that? And you can look at it. You can look at it because it was live streamed. You can look. Who told you that? And he's like, Your Honor, don't worry about who told me that. That's the least of my concern. It's who told me that. The meeting is my concern. He's like, no, I need to know. This is very distressing. I need to know who told you that. And he's like, Your Honor, it doesn't matter who told me that. Is that true? Like, did that happen? Who told you that? Who told you that? Who told you that? Who told you that? Over and over and over. And it's just wild that, like, in a RICO case involving supposed gang members, that the judge is like, who snitched? Nah, for real, who snitched? Huh? Like, hey, I need you to come up out them names. Who snitched? Ain't nobody play with, look, I will bust everybody in here right now. Who snitched? And Doug's lawyer is like, no, look, I'm not going to tell you, all right? I'm not going to tell you how I came upon this knowledge. I'm just asking you if this happened. I'm asking you maybe even for a mistrial. Like, how could this happen? He goes, who told you? Who told you? I'm going to give you 5 minutes to tell me who told you. And Doug's lawyer is like, I don't need 5 minutes. I'm not going to tell you. That should be the least of your concern. Like, is this true? And he's like, I'm going to hold you in contempt if you don't tell me. I will put you in jail if you don't tell me. You will go to jail if you do not tell me. It's like, look, I'm not going to tell you. You can put me in jail, but the problem is the meeting. The problem isn't who told me, right? And so then the judge does it. He holds Doug's lawyer in contempt, which is pretty terrifying. You know? This judge is basically going over and over again. Who snitched? Who snitched? I can't stand a snitch. And you know... And you couldn't see Thug's face in the moment, but he had to have been like, I know, right? And so then Glanville does it. He holds Thug's lawyer in contempt. And, you know, the Bar Association hears about it. And they show up to back Thug's lawyer up because that's terrifying. It's terrifying if a judge does something, doesn't even bother denying it, and then holds you in contempt for asking. That's a scary court system. You know what I mean? Because that's one of those things. If it can happen to anybody, it can happen to anybody. Like, I know that it's a case involving hip hop, involving like gang culture, whatever. But that particular thing, that could happen to anybody. I promise you. That's very scary. You know. And so the Bar Association shows up to back this dude up, and it looks like his case is going to be heard, and probably the contempt is going to be thrown out. But basically, they tell Glanville, it's like, there's no way you're impartial. If you're trying this hard, there's no way you're willing to just let the facts play out. And so Glanville has to recuse himself from the case. And one of the things about recusing yourself, it doesn't undo damage. The case just goes on, you know? So there's still this like contempt hanging over Thug's lawyer's head and stuff. And then they move on to the next judge, and the next judge was the judge for a day. I'm not a judge, and I don't know how judges get cases and stuff. Apparently this case was just given to her randomly and everything, and then she got the case and she was immediately like, hey, y'all, I can't. And so many people were like, why? What's the problem? Don't worry about me. I can't right now. And so then the case goes to the third judge. You know, the judge just, that judge. The case goes to her, and she does her best. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult because there are things happening in the case that should just never happen. They actually had an officer come in who was, I guess you could almost call him a specialist in RICO cases through his police work, right? And even he made a mistake on the stand that had the defense asking for a mistrial, because basically the state handled the case so poorly, so messy, just so confusing, right? That the defense would be asking for a mistrial consistently. They were asking for a mistrial the way that you act when you got 2 cards left in Uno. Anybody do anything, you're like, oh. Defense would call for a mistrial nonstop. That's a mistrial right there, Your Honor. He just sneezed. That's a mistrial. He gonna get everybody sick. Because this witness on the stand, you know, his testimony, I'm pretty sure, had to be thrown out because even though he's an expert in RICO and everything, it was 2 things were revealed that were pretty distressing. One, it's a RICO case, so they're trying to get everybody on everybody's crimes, but they never bothered to really look at the financial records of Thug. Which is pretty insane if you're telling me that all the money he makes, he runs through and to a gang. And you didn't bother to check a Chase statement or anything? That's wild. And then, while this officer is giving testimony, he makes a mistake that obviously wouldn't be called out by the prosecution, but does not get called immediately. And then the defense hears it, and then they're like, this is crazy. We can't allow it. Basically, he references past convictions as part of a testimony to what this person would have done in this case. And you can't do that. You got to judge it by the merits of the evidence you have in front of you at what happened right now, right? And at one point, the judge loses it. She storms out. The judge goes, I can't take it anymore. She hadn't even been the judge the whole time, but she was like, this is insanity. And you couldn't see his face, but you could imagine Thug being like, I know, right? Like, and so she almost grants a mistrial. You know, there's a mistrial with prejudice and mistrial without prejudice. Mistrial with prejudice is basically don't even bring it up again. Mistrial without prejudice is like, okay, you didn't make the best case, or something happened, or a bunch of jurors went to the Dominican Republic, so like, we can try it again later.
And so, you know, the judge at one point has had it with the prosecution and is giving like a full-on. You just so rarely hear people talk to like this on a live stream that aren't on a Zoom call at home. Like this, she was just like, she was looking at the prosecution and she was at her wit's end, and she was like, I don't know what to say to you. Like, I don't know, with the years of experience that you have, I don't know if you were willfully trying this case as badly as possible, or if you were just so unorganized that you can't seem to string a coherent thought together on how 2 things are related. We've heard testimony. There are people that don't show up. We're leaving at 4:25. Like, what is happening? And the whole time, prosecution is like, oh. You know, you ever just take your talking to because you know you're like, yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah, and you're like the prosecutor had the same nod that dudes have on the street when they getting yelled at on Valentine's Day. It's just like, just go ahead and nod. Accept that you've messed up. It was so bad. you know, and it'd be thing after thing after thing, whether it was jurors, whether it was judges, you know, whether it was just wild testimony. There were people so uncooperative, right? Like there was one point where they showed this guy a picture, right? And it's a picture of him and Thug and two other people. Apparently with the person, I don't know, I didn't see the picture, but apparently with the person who was murdered, right? Because that's one of the charges. There's drug trafficking, there's like gun running, there's all this stuff, but there's also a murder, right? And when it comes to the murder, that's one of the big ones because they're alleging that Thug paid for the getaway car, right? And so once again, not checking his financial record seems like an oversight. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just saying. And they show a picture, right, with all these people to someone on the stand. And they're like, do you recognize anyone in this picture? And he's like, I see me. Okay, fair enough. Even when it came to start with this, there was one time where they just simply asked this dude, when did you meet Young Thug? And he was like, before I went to jail. And just for the sake of clarity, the prosecutor tried to clarify, which time before you went to jail? And he just goes, you right. And I don't know how you handle this sort of thing, because this ended up being the longest trial in Georgia's history. Also one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive, because I guess plea deals cost a lot of money. And it gets so bad that every day defense is like, hey, mistrial's still an option. You want to hit it with no mistrial? We can mistrial. You know what I mean? But then, you know, the prosecution would do something that would kind of warrant a little bit of a mistrial. Like there was even one point where they had someone on the stand read a caption from an Instagram post. And this caption had been poured over because basically through the hashtags, what a lot was being alleged, because, you know, whenever there's letters, whenever there's numbers, it could have no meaning, or it could have double meaning, or it could mean exactly what the prosecution wants it to mean. It could mean what the defense wants it to mean. And so they were arguing about this one picture over and over again before they would let the person just read it out loud to the jury, right? Because then I don't know if it's a gang, and I don't know if that was what the prosecution was alleging, but there was one point where the prosecutor was asking someone on the stand about a series of numbers, right? And a lot of people will sort of rep their area code. That's just a common thing throughout America, right? Exactly. That one, that's one of those things. It's like it's so unifying. Everyone does it. Like sometimes you just can't help it. Yeah. But this is my thing. The dude on the stand, prosecutor asked him, "What's 374?" And he was like, "Numbers." Maybe it's a gang, maybe it's not. I have no idea, right? But basically, there's this one picture that's being poured over and over again, and this was the straw that sort of broke everything, right? because they made agreements and they had even redacted the picture so that only what would be read was what the prosecution and defense agreed on based off of the evidence that they were both showing, right? But then when they actually gave the picture to the person on the stand, nothing was redacted. And the prosecutor had them read everything. And so then the defense is like, Your Honor. I've never heard a lawyer have to like go Your Honor, kind of like, Mom, like. But this was it, Your Honor. We just went over the thing. Why would Shaw? And sure enough, Judge agreed. Judge was like, look, I gotta do something else with my life too. Like, it's just, it can't just be this. And the judge said an interesting thing, and like I said, I know a little bit about the law, most of it, what not to do from this case. But the judge says something where she's like, I'm basically trying to salvage something here because I don't want an entire jury's 11 months to be wasted. I don't want, which to me is a little weird. Their time's already been wasted. Like, this is about seeing if someone did or didn't do something, you know? And so that statement was said, but then, judge turns to the defense and goes, I'm not gonna grant you a mistrial with prejudice, but would you like a mistrial without prejudice? And defense was like, yup. And then she was like, I'm inclined to give it to you because this whole thing, this right here, no. No. And so then, they get to plea dealing a bunch of people day after day after day. And then they actually go to Thug and they're like, look, you're facing like 25, 40 years for all the things that we are alleging, right? But we'll give you probation, right? We'll give you probation if you just admit that you are the leader of YSL, a gang where you take all the money and you funnel it through into the gang and everything they do is at your direction. Like if you'll just say that, probation, you'll be good to go, right? And then Thug says, no, I'm not just gonna accept. You came to me to make your case for you. You know what I mean? No. And that's a very, I don't know, to me, that's a very, brave thing. I don't even fully understand all of the conditions around the sentence that he actually got, but that was what he was initially presented with. And he said no. And then the state said, okay, we're gonna make sure that you do 25 years. And that doesn't sit right with me. And it obviously didn't sit right with his defense attorney. His defense attorney brought it up when the judge was about to make a decision. Basically, he says, Your Honor, the state came to us and they said he could do probation if he signs this piece of paper, or he could do 25 years if he doesn't. And I'm just kind of curious why the state would allow someone that they're so sure is a racketeering, drug peddling murderer to go free with probation if they're sure, right? And that he'll do 25 years if he doesn't say what they're so sure of. And the judge was like, good point. That is very hard to argue against. And then the judge granted Thug probation, and he went home. And there are some people that are like, man, if he could have just stuck it out a little bit longer, seen the trial to its end, there's no way he would have been convicted. The defense was ruining the state, like just at every turn. And it was mostly the state tripping over themselves, right? And I get it, though. That dude sat in jail without bond. Dude was in jail for 2 years. He was in jail for a year while they picked the jury. He was in jail the entire trial, And every once in a while, don't get me wrong, every once in a while, Thug would also laugh. Because, he was facing a lot of time, but every once in a while, he'd also be like, how did we get here? This seems... Far be it for me to say, I'm just a rapper, but as far as the law goes... But what? I don't know. I don't know. I get it. I get somebody tells you, hey, you just do 3 more months, you'll go free forever. Maybe. That's scary, And it's also scary that that the state needed it this bad. That a lot of cases come down to reputation over justice. You couldn't just take the L, right? It's like, no, you will die in prison for me to not look bad. That's terrifying, And I know it feels like it can't happen. Yeah, I mean, I don't rap, but I could see myself in a bad situation. Because it kind of begs the question, did this person get away with a bunch of stuff, or did the state just jam someone up for 2 years? Thanks. But that's my thing. It's like I don't even know, and I'm obviously not Thug. I hope that everybody can move on in the most prosperous way possible. I really do. Everybody that testified, everybody. I wish the best for everyone. I really do. I just can't seem to think there's a level of peace you have to attain that I don't know if I have. Because if someone accused me of being this drug running, murderer, this horrible person, this that did all these things, and they were willing to put me in jail forever with a bad case that they didn't have enough evidence for. And then they were just like, you can go if you just sign it. I think it would make me mad enough to kill someone. But that's just me.
When I